what is it? Lisa the Boy Scout. So if you read the IMDb description, you see this little photo, and it says, Bart and Lisa try to out-scout each other at the annual jamboree when the boy explorers become co-ed. It's a 6.4. I'm actually curious, what did the one before this get? It got a 6.2, so this actually did get a better rating, 6.5. Essentially, this is kind of like the intro is cold open, was introducing the fact that Bart is going to do the Boy Scouts, and then Lisa is going to join it because they make a co-ed and Bart's upset about it. But then it very quickly pivots to a robot kind of parody of these two hackers who then say that they want less ransom from Disney and Fox, or else they're going to release all of the Simpsons deepest and darkest secrets, which then results in this kind of like where, I don't know if you've seen the Rick and Morty's Mind Blowers episodes, but they are about Rick showing Morty all of the memories that Morty has asked Rick to erase from him. But yeah, so in that the Rick and Morty way, it's the memories that Rick has stored in this like little room. He plugs into Morty's head, and Morty can relive these memories. So it kind of shows a way to do these like quick little vignettes and do that without having to write a full story or a full scene around them. And this kind of takes that little premise and makes it into a Simpsons thing, which I am very much on board of. This is season 34 of The Simpsons. The golden years are way behind us, so just do something different. Make something fun. Be weird. Do something odd. Because at this point, you're never going to get back to what The Simpsons was in the past. There's no point in trying to do that. The world has moved beyond classic Simpsons for a reason, and that's not a bad thing. It's okay that The Simpsons aren't what The Simpsons used to be, because they are now just an institution. They used to be pushing against the status quo. Now they just are the status quo, and that's fine. That just is what it is. That's what happens. So essentially what this episode does is that then after that Mr. Robot kind of intro where hackers are threatening to show different things, they threaten to show like reveals, essentially. Like hidden reveals that were never meant to be seen by people, and how they can ruin The Simpsons. A big way that they advertised this episode as well was they're going to address all of the Simpsons predicted rumors, which they do. Let me go in order of how they do this. The first one that they show is that Lenny is not real. Lenny is just a figment of Carl's imagination that Moe said is a coping mechanism because Carl lost his first imaginary friend. And then immediately after Lenny disappears, a new guy pops up called Steven. And then Moe is just like, oh god, here we go again. I don't know if that's a real Simpsons rumor. I assume a lot of this episode is based on real Simpsons rumors that the writers found online, that they were just like, wouldn't this be funny if we just said that this was actually real? After that is when they show a clip from Simpsons roasting on an open flame. The first ever episode, the one where they get Santa's Little Helper, they showed the very end of that where the Simpsons are together and they have Santa's Little Helper and they're all happy and they're all a family. And Bart from the future, the kind of new canonical future, the Days of Future Past future, shows up and tells the Simpsons from that period of time a number of things that the Simpsons predicted, and is kind of showing that's how they got all this information. So they talk about the guy that won the Nobel Prize in economics that they predicted. They talk about Trump being president, gas hoarding, the pandemic, the Disney-Fox merger, which then they make a joke about about them both being owned by Panda Express in the future. So they have that, and what's kind of fun about that is they shoot it in the 4:3 aspect ratio with the black bars on the side, and they reanimate the old Simpsons cartoons in that style. So they do digital animation, but they do it in a way that looks like season 1, which is really cool. And then that was a big part of the marketing, was addressing all the Simpsons predicted rumors. After that, they have a little clip of groundskeeper Willie and the sea captain, like a perfect storm kind of thing. They're on a boat in this big storm with all these things, and all they say is I and R to each other, which is kind of funny. Another big one that they do straight after that is the Martin Prince bit, which they say that Martin Prince isn't a kid. He's actually a 36-year-old New York police informant that has a disease that makes him look 10 years old. And he has a wife and 2 kids. There's just a shot of Martin drinking beer on his couch while talking to his wife. That's a funny one. I really like that one. After that, they show a little clip of when Lisa learns French and kills a bunch of people because she tries to call the fire department about a burning building, but she refuses to speak English because it's a very authentic class where they can only speak French for 2 solid weeks or else they fail. So there was that clip. Straight after that, there's a clip of Homer building the Field of Dreams. Instead, it's football, and a bunch of Canadian football players come from heaven. This episode is kind of all over the place, if I'm going to stop right here. So a lot of them are meant to be kind of like, oh, clips that can ruin The Simpsons. Other of them, like, you know, the Canadian Field of Dreams just seems like a dumb little segment to it. So I think that would be my least favorite part about this episode, is that there's no real cohesion to it. At least in like the Morty's Mind Blowers, there's like a overall theme of what these are. These are just shit things that happen to Morty that Morty doesn't want to remember. And then that's why you can have that little overarching narrative. Here, it's a lot of very eclectic little clips that feel that they're just like half thought of things that they just didn't really fully develop. Some of them are really fun and really clever, like the Bart coming back from the future is a really clever one. Martin Prince is actually 36 years old. That's a fun one. Then they had a little one where Professor Frank is just Matt Damon in The Martian and goes like overboard and makes a bunch of Frank clones that then like leave him stranded on Mars again. That one was a bit lame. Then they did an iPhone Homer Simpson apology about how Homer mixed up Finland with Norway. I don't know if that's a real bit that actually happened in The Simpsons and if Finland was annoyed by it, but that was a thing that they did in this episode. Then they did another weird one, which was Skinner and Agnes kind of arguing with each other over dinner, and then Skinner sneaks out, puts a blonde mustache and blonde wig on, and then pretends to be like a little kid being mothered by this other woman, who then turns out to be Agnes. Doesn't know that it's Skinner, so she also thinks that she's just kind of pretending to be another grown adult's mom. So that's kind of a weird little bit that happened. That one was kind of strange. Then after that, it was Homer steals Ned's mustache and then goatee, and then Ned rips off his crucifix from his shirt and just says, "Kids, now we're Jewish." And they're like, "L'chaim." That was a funny little one. That was a funny bit. I like that one. There's one where comic book guy is just super positive about everything and is really happy. And then Dr. Hibbert says that he has lost oxygen in his brain and then he dies. And then that, I don't remember the Charles Bronson mustache guy. He's like, "Hey, Pally," that sarcastic guy. Homer sees him at the Bad Moe's and then starts talking to him. He's like, "Hey, I've seen you around town." He's like, "No, I don't think so." Just got that kind of face. And it turns out that he's a bunch of clones of the same guy underground being birthed by this giant like ant version of him. Explains why he's just everywhere all at once. After that, Santa's little helper can talk, which is this little weird bit where his little helper walks in, drinks some coffee, says, "Good morning, Homer," and Homer does a spit take for about 30 seconds and then just says, "It's morning." That was kind of a weird one. I could have done without that one, but it's fine. It takes like 10 seconds. They do the Ralph is Eddie's son bit where Steve Wiggum says to what's her name? Fuck. He's like, "I know Ralph isn't my real son." And then she's just like, "What are you talking about? That's not true." Eddie and Ralph walks in and Eddie just says, "My son's breath smells like cat food." And then she's just like, "Okay, all right, that's true." I've seen that rumor around the internet. I definitely have seen that bit. There's one where Lisa goes to a restaurant and orders veal in like a trench coat, which is another one that's meant to like ruin The Simpsons. I get that one. Because the whole point of like Lisa being a vegetarian is that because Paul McCartney was in that episode, he asked them to never show Lisa eating meat again. She never relapses from being vegetarian. So if you look at any shot of them eating dinner, Lisa never has meat on her plate. Then they do another little bit where Milhouse is neither Kirk or Luann's son, and then they start celebrating. Yeah, then there's another clip about Selma actually being Marge's mother instead of her sister, and then Disco Stu is the real father. I think that's a reference to a movie that I don't know. I know that's what happened to Jack Nicholson, the actor. His mother had him really young, so he got raised thinking that his grandmother was his mother, and that his mother was his sister, which is a very weird little thing that happened. It was after that, then Groundskeeper Willie turns out to be Welsh and not Scottish. And then, so this is just kind of like a very quick segment of like little vignettes. Then they go into like a little montage of clips from real life episodes, including the one where Homer makes out with the meat like he's cheating on it from that show Cheaters. The one where Marge and Lisa go to Mars. Burns without eyes in his sockets, where he's like batting them around like the cup and a ball thing, where all the people take that medicine, that happy medicine, and it makes their eyes pop out because they're so relaxed. That was in there. That episode is Werner Herzog in it, which is interesting. There was the Homer plastic surgery bit where he has all that loose skin like clipped to his back. which is gross. There's the episode, show the episode where Homer's chased by a bear and he does the whack-a-mole thing where he puts his head down in a bunch of the toilets and then head pops up. That was in there. The Jockey Elves, which is probably the most egregious thing that has happened, the most unrealistic thing that has happened in a normal Simpsons episode. And then they have the clip of Homer eating his leg from the Treehouse of Horror that came out a few years ago. Okay. This is the bit where they show actual clips from The Simpsons. Like, these are real wacky scenes that actually happened.
For you, baby.
Being literal?
Jockeys are we. We live underground in a fiberglass tree.
The Jockey Elves was a real thing that happened. This is Treehouse of Horror, that's not really fair. Then they address the fact that Mole Man is young. I don't know if you remember from that one episode, I think it's Duffless? What is it? He says he's like 30 years old or something. They show the bit of the intro of Homer driving around and throwing the bit of carbon rod, throws it into the street. Mole Man, it lands in this guy's drink, and then he drinks it and he shrinks down to look like Mole Man. That happens. So they address that bit, which I find kind of fun. Chalmers is just saying sinner and whipping his back like the Da Vinci Code while looking at like a crucifix with Jesus on it. Homer, so there's a theory in The Simpsons that in Bart the Daredevil, Homer crashes into the gorge and then falls down and then gets into a coma. The theory is that because after that, the Simpsons get a lot wackier and a lot of weirder things happen, and the theory is that everything is just Homer's coma dreams while he's been in a coma. So they actually reference that, of Homer wakes up in a coma after the Springfield Gorge bit. You've been in a coma for 2 days. He says, but I've had over 700 adventures. And they're like, none of it was true. He's like, so you're saying I didn't have a pet lobster? That was kind of fun. I like them referencing that one. Then there was a little bit about baby Jeff Goldblum, which I thought was kind of stupid. A little bit about a bunch of unused titles that they never used. I thought that was kind of fun. I don't know how much of that was them literally just having pun names for titles that they didn't want to. I don't know how many of those were actually real titles that they thought of and couldn't find an episode to put around them, and how many of them were actually just stupid fake ones that they just made up for this. Then they end the episode with going back to the ending of the actual episode, the Bart and Lisa or Boy Scouts thing, where Homer and Marge say they go and rescue the kids from the ocean, whatever, and Homer and Marge say that they nearly got divorced over something insignificant, referencing the fact that Homer and Marge always get into these stupid big fights over miscommunication, which is just like a very obvious TV trope. Marge just says, well, luckily your dad apologized and it fixed everything. So it's a lot of this episode is just very lampshady. It's just trying to do a little wink and a nod to the fact that they know the criticisms of the show, they know the theories, they know all this stuff. They're like, we know, we get it, we read the forums, we know all this shit. And I get why people could get a bit annoyed by that. Not all of the little vignettes are as good as the others, and I wish it had a bit of a more consistent theme. But overall, I really, really enjoyed them doing something just fucking weird and different. I think that that's what The Simpsons should be doing in season 34, episode 3. Stop just trying to be the same bland, boring show that you're always going to be. Just do something fucking wild and weird and wacky. That's what we want to see. That's more fun than just anything.